a 70-year-old man wouldn't let me out of the bedroom all night. What began as casual companionship quickly turned into a night of deep, unhurried intimacy, where every touch and kiss awakened desires I thought I had lost forever. As the night stretched on, I discovered that love, at any age, could be the start of something truly timeless. At 62, I had long accepted that passion, the kind that used to make my heart race, belonged to my youth. My marriage had ended years ago, quietly slipping away like the slow fade of an old photograph. I spent my days in contentment, surrounded by my grandchild, knitting in the afternoons and sipping tea by the window in the evenings. I had made peace with it, with the quiet of my life, until I met him. Henry. Henry was 70, a retired professor with sharp wit and a smile that could melt even the coldest of hearts. We met at a community gathering, one of those social events I was usually reluctant to attend, but something about Henry pulled me in the moment we locked eyes across the room. He wasn't like the men I had known in my younger years. He was older, yes, but there was something about his presence, a quiet strength and an intensity in his gaze that made me feel like I was being seen, truly seen, for the first time in decades. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking my video. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, and before long, we were spending our afternoons together, walking through the park or sharing coffee at the local cafe. His laugh was infectious, his stories of days gone by captivating, and the way he looked at me made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. There was something different about him, something that stirred feelings in me I thought had long been buried. But tonight was different. It was the first time I had agreed to spend the evening at his home. I had hesitated at first, unsure if I was ready for what that might mean. But the invitation had been so warm, so inviting, that I couldn't resist. Little did I know, the night would unfold in ways I had never imagined. When I arrived at Henry's house, the atmosphere was immediately different from our usual casual meetings. His home, nestled on the edge of the woods, was cozy and inviting, the smell of freshly brewed coffee lingering in the air. He greeted me at the door with that smile that always made my heart flutter, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement bubbling beneath the surface. We sat in his living room, talking for hours like we always did, but there was something different about tonight, the way he looked at me, the way his fingers lingered just a little too long when they brushed against mine. It all felt charged, electric, like the air between us was buzzing with unspoken possibilities. "Margaret," he said softly, his voice low and warm as he turned to face me fully, "do you ever feel like life has more to offer, even now, at our age?" I looked at him. There was something in his eyes, a depth of emotion that took me by surprise. I had been so used to the idea that passion belonged to the young, that once you reached a certain age, you simply lived out your days in peaceful contentment. But here was Henry, 70 years old, looking at me with a desire that made me feel like I was 20 again. "I do," I whispered, barely able to find my voice. But I didn't think I would feel it again. He smiled then, a slow, knowing smile, and without another word, he stood and extended his hand to me. I hesitated for only a moment before taking it, feeling the warmth of his palm against mine as he led me down the hallway to his bedroom. Help me reach my first 1,000 subscribers. Your support is what makes this journey possible, so don't forget to subscribe. My heart raced, a mixture of nerves and excitement swirling inside me as we stepped into the dimly lit room. The bedroom was simple, but there was an intimacy about it that immediately put me at ease. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast a warm light across the room, and the sound of the wind rustling through the trees outside the window added to the quiet stillness of the moment. Henry didn't say a word as he gently closed the door behind us. He didn't need to. The silence between us was filled with 1,000 unspoken words, each one heavy with the promise of what was to come. He turned to me, his eyes never leaving mine, as he stepped closer, his hand reaching up to cup my cheek. His touch was gentle, yet there was a strength behind it that made me lean into him, my body responding to the warmth of his skin against mine. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his lips to mine, and the kiss was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was slow, tender, and filled with a depth of emotion that took my breath away. It wasn't the rushed passion of youth, where everything is frantic and desperate. No, this was something different, something deeper. His lips moved against mine in a way that made me feel cherished, like he was savoring every second of the moment, and I found myself melting into him, all my reservations slipping away. Henry pulled back slightly, his hand sliding down my arm, his fingers intertwining with mine as he led me towards the bed. There was no hurry, no urgency. We had all night, and we both knew it. As we lay down together, side by side, he took my hand in his and brought it to his lips. My heart swelled at the gesture, the tenderness in his touch making me feel more desired than I had in years. It was as if he knew exactly what I needed, how to make me feel safe, how to make me feel wanted. We spent the next few hours simply being together, exploring each other with a kind of reverence that made the air between us thick with anticipation. His hands were gentle but firm, his touch purposeful. With every caress and every time he looked at me, I could see the fire burning in his eyes, the desire he felt for me as real and intense as my own. We talked in hushed whispers, sharing secrets and desires that had been hidden away for too long. He made me feel alive in ways I hadn't felt in decades. There was no rush, no pressure to move faster. We were in no hurry to reach the climax of our night together. Instead, we took our time, savoring each moment, letting the tension of his heartbeat beneath my fingertips. We were two people who had lived full lives, who had experienced love and loss, joy and pain. And yet, here we were, discovering something new, something that felt both familiar and exhilarating at the same time. The way his touch lingered just a little longer than necessary, it all felt like a dance, a slow, intimate dance that neither of us wanted to end. As the night wore on, the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of us in the quiet stillness of the bedroom. Time seemed to stretch, each moment lasting forever, each touch, each kiss filled with a kind of magic that I hadn't known was possible. Henry didn't let me leave that night. He didn't want to, and truthfully, neither did I. There was something about the way we fit together, the way our bodies moved in perfect sync, that made me want to stay, to hold on to the feeling for as long as I could. I had never imagined that at 62, I could feel such passion, such intensity, but here I was, in the arms of a 70-year-old man, feeling more alive than I had in years. We didn't rush, there was no need to. The night was ours, and we took full advantage of it. We moved slowly, savoring every second, drawing out the moments of intimacy for as long as we could. There were times when we simply held each other, his arms wrapped around me as we lay together in the quiet, the warmth of his body against mine providing a kind of comfort I hadn't realized I needed. When the first light of dawn began to filter through the curtains, I lay in Henry's arms, my head resting against his chest. I could hear the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. The passion of the night had left me feeling renewed, like I had been given a second chance at something I thought I had lost forever. Henry pressed a soft kiss to the top of my head, his fingers brushing gently through my hair. "You're incredible," he whispered, his voice still thick with sleep. I smiled against his chest, feeling the warmth of his words settle deep in my heart. I had never imagined that at this stage in my life, I would find someone like Henry, someone who made me feel cherished, desired, and truly alive. As the sun rose higher in the sky, I knew that our night together had been more than just a fleeting moment of passion. It had been a reminder that no matter how old you are, love, desire, and intimacy never truly fade. As the early morning light began to brighten the room, casting soft shadows across the walls, I found myself still wrapped in Henry's arms, unwilling to break the spell of the night. The warmth of his body against mine was a quiet comfort, a steady reminder of the closeness we had shared. But even with the calmness of the dawn, there was something else, a lingering heat, a smoldering desire that hadn't quite been extinguished. Henry's hand moved gently over my arm, his fingertips grazing my skin in a way that made my body respond without hesitation. The night had been long, filled with a passion that surprised us both, but even now, lying in the peaceful glow of the morning, there was an unspoken understanding between us. We weren't finished. There was more to explore, more to feel. He shifted slightly beneath me, his chest rising and falling with deep, steady breaths, and when I looked up at him, his eyes met mine with that same intensity that had captivated me the night before. There was no need for words. Everything we had to say had already been communicated through touch, through the way we had spent the night together. But the quiet tension between us told me that neither of us wanted the night to end, not yet. Henry's hand moved to my cheek, his thumb brushing lightly over my skin, and I leaned into his touch. Despite the calmness of the moment, the way he looked at me, the way his fingers traced the lines of my face, made me feel more alive than I had in years. It was as if every touch, every gentle caress was reminding me that I was still capable of feeling this deeply, this intensely. "I can't believe how incredible you are," he whispered, his voice low and filled with admiration. His eyes traced the contours of my face as though he were memorizing every detail, savoring the connection that stretched between us. I smiled softly, but there was no denying the pull I felt toward him even now. It wasn't just the desire that had flared between us during the night, it was something more, something deeper, more profound. It was the way his presence made me feel seen, truly seen, in a way I hadn't experienced in so long. "I feel the same," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper as I let my hand rest on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my palm. The tension between us thickened, and in the silence of the room, I could feel the weight of his gaze on me. His hand slid slowly from my cheek down to my neck, his fingers trailing a path that made my skin tingle with anticipation. Every inch of me responded to him, to the warmth of his touch, and I knew that whatever we had started the night before was far from over. As the minutes passed, the air in the room grew heavy with the same charged energy that had filled the night before. There was something unhurried about the way he moved, the way his hands explored my body with a tenderness that spoke volumes about the care he took with me. But even as we lingered in the quiet, there was an intensity building beneath the surface, a hunger that neither of us had quite satisfied. Henry's hand moved slowly down my arm, his fingers tracing a path over my skin that left a trail of warmth in their wake. I could feel my heart beginning to race again, my breath quickening as he shifted closer, his body pressing softly against mine. The heat between us was palpable, simmering just beneath the surface, waiting for the moment when it would ignite once again. He kissed me then, slow and deliberate, his lips moving against mine with a tenderness that made my entire body come alive. It wasn't rushed, there was no need for haste. Instead, we let the kiss deepen slowly, savoring each second, letting the desire between us build once more. Every touch, every kiss felt like a renewal of the passion, a promise that there was still so much more to discover. His hand slid down my back, pulling me closer, and I could feel the strength in his touch, the way he held me with such care and devotion. It wasn't just about physical desire, there was something deeper, something that made me feel like I was the most important person in the world to him. It was a feeling I hadn't expected, but one that I found myself wanting to hold on to, wanting to experience over and over again. We spent the next few hours in each other's arms, moving together in a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. There was no urgency, no rush to reach the peak of our desire. Instead, we took our time, letting the intimacy between us grow, allowing the tension to build slowly and steadily until it was almost unbearable. Every touch, every kiss was filled with a depth of emotion that took my breath away. Henry's hands moved over me with a kind of reverence that made my heart swell. It wasn't just about the physical connection we shared, it was about something more. It was about the way he made me feel cherished, the way he took his time with me as if every moment was precious. He made me feel like I was the only woman in the world, and in his arms, I felt a kind of security, a kind of warmth that I hadn't known I had been missing. I traced my fingers along the lines of his face, memorizing every detail, every wrinkle that told the story of the life he had lived. There was something beautiful about it, something comforting in the knowledge that we had both lived full lives, that we had both experienced love and loss, and yet here we were, finding something new, something profound in each other. His lips moved against mine in a slow, deliberate kiss, and I melted into him, my body responding to his with a kind of longing that felt almost overwhelming. The way he held me, the way he moved, made me feel like I was being worshipped, like every part of me was worthy of his attention, his affection. The night seemed to stretch on forever, each moment blending seamlessly into the next as we lost ourselves in each other. Time seemed to slow, and it was as if the world outside no longer existed. There was only us, only the warmth of his body against mine, only the sound of our breath mingling in the quiet of the room. There was a kind of magic in the way we fit to each other, savoring every second, drawing out the intimacy for as long as we could. The climax of our night together didn't come in a rush of passion, but in the quiet, steady build of emotion that left us both breathless, both completely and utterly connected. As the first light of morning filtered through the curtains, I lay in Henry's arms, my body pressed close to his as we rested in the quiet afterglow of our night together. There was a kind of peace in the stillness, a kind of contentment that filled every corner of the room. Henry's hand rested gently on my back, his fingers tracing lazy circles over my skin, and I felt a sense of calm settle over me. I had never imagined that at this stage in my life, I could feel this kind of passion, this kind of connection. But here I was, in the arms of a man who had reignited something inside me that I thought had long been extinguished. We didn't speak as the morning sun rose higher in the sky, but there was no need for words. Everything we needed to say had been communicated through the way we had touched, the way we had held each other throughout the night.